At the time, Tesla was in a precarious financial situation, and I was told by the banks that if I did not agree to settle with the SEC, that the banks would cease providing working capital and Tesla would go bankrupt immediately. So that's like having a gun to your child's head. So I was forced to concede to the SEC unlawfully, those bastards. And now they say it makes it look like I lied when I did not in fact lie. I was forced to admit that I lied to save Tesla's life, and that's the only reason.
Do you think Ripple will also settle with the SEC by force, like what Elon Musk did? Well, there's a pretty high possibility of this happening, and most crypto enthusiasts believe so. I mean, how else will Ripple come to terms with the SEC when they clearly have all the facts to expose the corrupt regulatory body? Sorry, the most effective regulatory body that seems to have a hold on the Wild West crypto arena. But as we can all see, the only way out is if the SEC forces Ripple to fold. And I'm not the only one who has that idea. Check out this tweet. Dr. Martin suggests that chances are Ripple will lose this lawsuit and probably win the war for the whole crypto market. My opinion is that their form of losing is a settlement, which will lead to Ripple paying on the top of the losses the company has had to go through because of this lawsuit. But before we get deeper into that, let's roll that intro. As always, welcome to Moneyside, your favorite crypto channel. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you get updates when we drop new videos. Don't forget to smash that like button, and you can always leave a comment or a question in the section below. John Deaton has been one of the most vocal advocates since the beginning of this case, and here's what he has to say about the current state of the lawsuit. Deaton tweeted, "When the SEC sued Ripple and literally alleged that XRP was an investment contract, the functional equivalent of saying oranges are, I argued Coinbase should not only delist XRP, but file a motion to intervene, or alternatively ask to be amicus. Obviously, it was a super aggressive approach, and I acknowledged that 95% of corporate counsels would argue that I'm insane. But the complaint claimed essentially were securities, and that's why tens of thousands of XRP holders agreed with me and joined in my motion." The SEC's complaint and lawsuit has almost zero basis. They apparently chose to sue Ripple out of the blue, and they've been working with this company hand in hand over the years since its launch. In their defense, the regulatory body claimed that they were gathering evidence to support their lawsuit. And that's a load of BS. If you've listened into the court proceedings, you'll notice that the SEC doesn't have any evidence to support or even defend their claim, and that's grounds for throwing this case out. The only thing keeping this case in court is the fact that the judge and the entire Justice Department doesn't want to jeopardize the reputation of the body. Unfortunately, the larger population is being fed false information just to cause debate and unrest in the crypto world.
Well, two things. One, something called regulation through enforcement is never a particularly efficient way to regulate, right? If you want to regulate, do the work, write the rules, codify the rules. And when a company comes to you and says, "Hey, help me understand the rules, I want to make sure we're following the rules," help them understand the rules. I met personally with the SEC 3 times. Not once in those meetings did the SEC ever say to me, "Hey," and by the way, we're totally transparent about what we're doing. Not once did the SEC say, "Hey, we think XRP might be a security." So then for them later on to go back and say, "Hey, the whole time we thought XRP was a security, we just didn't tell you." That doesn't feel like a genuine partnership between public sector and private sector. Moreover, and some of this stuff I'll be more vague about because some of this stuff, it hasn't been public yet. But there's something called the Hinman email. Bill Hinman, the director of corporate finance at the SEC, gave a speech in June 2018 about how ETH had been a security, but had magically become not a security. And there's some emails associated with that the judge turned over 6 times. We finally did get those emails. And I think when those come to light, I think you will see more kind of like, how is it possible the SEC decided to bring a case against Ripple given what they were saying within their own walls? Indicative of, to some degree, a crypto winter that, as you just suggested, has changed in tone from how the last Davos, in terms of just, there was a lot of hype, a lot of noise around all things crypto at the last Davos. And I think seeing the change, and I actually think it's a really healthy change, that there's more focus on utility. Are these technologies that are solving real problems? And I think to your question, I think to the extent there are companies solving real problems for real customers and they're going to continue to grow regardless of the environment. Is there continued contagion? I think, we're obviously continuing to hear noise about what's going on with DCG and Gemini. Hard to know. It sounds like that could work out in a constructive way. I think all of this has not been great for crypto at large. But again, if you just focus on companies that are solving real problems, certainly Ripple had a record 2022. We'd rather see crypto do well at large, but we had a great year, signed up more and more customers and more volume going through our payment rails.
And in terms of your outlook for 2023, we've seen a bit of a bump for Bitcoin and the crypto markets. Are you expecting that to continue, or is it just a little bit of false hope?
Well, I've tried to stay out of the short-term price prediction on all things Bitcoin, or crypto in general. I'm long-term very bullish because I think these are technologies that can solve real problems at scale. And I think when you have kind of new emerging technologies, not dissimilar than, frankly, the internet and kind of the dot-com bubble, sometimes the hype gets ahead of the reality that comes into balance over time. But we shouldn't forget, it was really not that long ago, 21 years, Amazon during the dot-com bubble almost went out of business. So that the fact that you're seeing some changes in the crypto world, I think can be healthy for the long-term health of the industry.
And yet FTX appears to be a very high-profile case of fraud. There are serious regulatory and auditing gaps that went on with that institution. And yet at the same time, what I'm reading is so many people have been critical of SBF for having this close relationship with the regulators, the fact that he visited Gary Gensler so many times. So where do you draw the line? We need to strengthen regulation and oversight in this industry, but how close should the relationship be between your peer group and the U.S. regulators who are looking at these institutions?
First of all, I think you're exactly right. We talk about this as a crypto problem, but really this is just fraud. And I think in some ways not that dissimilar than Bernie Madoff. And when Bernie Madoff occurred, we didn't totally restructure how we thought about oversight and regulation of hedge funds. We realized that, hey, clearly in that case also the SEC had overlooked, and if people had reported to the SEC, they should be looking into Bernie Madoff. So I know that the SEC had met a bunch of times with SBF. I don't know the specifics of what types of oversight they were applying. I do think this is a fraud. I don't view this as a crypto problem at large. But to your point, I think regulatory clarity globally is important. And we're seeing a lot of countries. Here we are in Davos, and Switzerland's clearly one of the countries leading in providing regulatory clarity at an early stage. You have the UAE leaning in, the UK, Japan, Singapore. The U.S. is notably absent from that list. And I think in some ways, the regulators in the U.S. have added confusion to the crypto marketplace.
And let's talk about those regulators in the U.S., the SEC. Brad, let's get a check-in on what's going on with that lawsuit with the SEC and Ripple. Are you nearing an end potentially? Are you planning to settle with the SEC?
Well, we've always said that we would love to settle, but it requires one very, very, very important thing. And that is that on a go-forward basis, it's clear that XRP is not a security. The SEC and Gary Gensler has very outwardly said he views almost all crypto as a security. And so that leaves very little space in a Venn diagram for settlement. The case is now fully briefed in front of the judge, and judges take however long the judges will take. We're optimistic that this will certainly be resolved in 2023 and maybe the first half. So we'll see how it plays out from here. But I feel very good about where we are relative to the law and the facts.
So are you going to wait for the judge to come out with a decision on this one?
I'm very optimistic, and I think absent some significant change in posture from the SEC, I can't imagine that we won't have resolution from the judge. I also will point out, and I've certainly something I've heard here in Davos repeatedly, is how important this is, not just to how Ripple it goes forward, but also really the whole crypto industry in the United States. And I keep reminding people that outside the United States, crypto is still thriving, Ripple is still thriving, and we should make sure we continue to engage non-US regulators as well.
It's also difficult to say it's thriving when so many people have lost a lot of money speculating. And the key word here is speculating on the price of Bitcoin and various other cryptocurrencies. I remember back at the peak, there was a lot of talk about institutions getting involved. Given what we've seen, given the price action, given the drawdowns, given the numerous amounts of fraud cases that have gone on in the space, doesn't it feel like the hurdle is extremely high, if not impossible now, to get institutions involved? If you were sitting on a board of a pension fund, how could you justify to them that you're going to get involved in cryptocurrencies?
Well, I think it depends on how we're defining institutional involvement. When I think about institutional involvement with Ripple, I'm thinking about financial institutions, banks, payment providers who are using our technologies to solve a cross-border payments problem. They've continued to engage, we've continued to grow, and so I feel good about that. But look, I think anytime you have this kind of change, people take a moment. I also think, and I pointed out in one of the sessions I was in at Davos here yesterday, is, we talk about, obviously, crypto is down 65%. Tesla is down 65%. Facebook is down about 65%. But no one's saying, hey, we shouldn't invest in Tesla or Facebook. So I think we have to, clearly, I would much rather not have the volatility we've seen in crypto in 2022. But I think we also have to look at that in concert of other kind of growth investment areas. And again, to your point, most of crypto has been speculation. If it's just speculation, I don't think that's long-term sustainable. We need to focus on utility and make sure we're solving problems for customers.
Most XRP followers, including myself, are optimistic that this case will be over by somewhere within this year, despite the current false information surrounding the crypto world. And if Ripple wins this case, it's going to be a win for the entire crypto community. As always, please do your own research. And always trade safely, guys. Please keep in mind we're not a licensed financial advisor. All the videos on this channel are intended for entertainment purposes only. You can let us know what you think in the comment section below, and let's start a conversation. Thanks as always for watching. Couldn't be here without you. Don't forget to like this video, and please click on that subscribe button. And be sure to turn on notifications, that way you get posted when we put up new content. Look forward to seeing you next time here on Money Side.